Today I am working on a rather large bronze coin from the Emperor Caracalla. My goal is to make this coin readable and beautiful for a collection. On the reverse side we can see letters that are barely readable. They indicate the name of the city, Serdica. Today this is Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. Since this was a Roman province, the local gods had a Greek style. On the faint silhouette we can see the goddess of fortune. She is holding a cornucopia and the rudder of an ancient ship that stands on a globe. Under the microscope, the surface looks like the moon. We can see deep craters and brush marks. The owner tried to clean this coin before, but it did not help. The aggressive soil has destroyed almost the entire relief. Under the brown crust, we can see green areas of patina. Yes, real patina, which must be preserved. Right under it, there is already bare metal. We can also see planchet cracks on the coin. They appear during the striking process when the die pressed into the bronze blank. I plan to leave these damages for a more authentic look. If we look closely, we can notice part of the name of the city, Serdica. It is written in the Greek language. I am starting the first stage of work with benzotriazole to prevent bronze disease. Although we cannot visually see any active corrosion on this coin, I will leave it in the solution for 24 hours, just in case. 24 hours have passed. Now I need to carefully remove the coin from the solution and clean off the remaining benzotriazole. I must not touch it with bare hands. After that, I will thoroughly wipe the surface with a clean cloth soaked in isopropyl alcohol. Before I start to rebuild the missing parts of the relief, let us weigh the coin and record its weight. After the work is done, we will compare the results to see how much it has changed. After a precise calibration of the scale, let us record the weight at 14.36 grams. Now we move to the base layer. It will serve as a foundation to restore the bust of the emperor. For this I am using a special polymer with metal filler. The main task now is to recreate the profile as accurately as possible. It must match a reference coin without damaging the remaining original details. At the end of this video I will show you a comparison between the reference and the restored piece. I want to warn you right away that I will show the process in parts, because this work takes a lot of time. After each step I will insert a photo of that specific progress for better understanding. So let us take a look at the first layer. After baking in the oven at a low temperature, I carefully use a scraper to remove the glossy shine and excess material. Layer by layer application and constant scraping is the only reliable way to restore the details authentically. After all, my main principle is to add as few imaginary details to the coin as possible. Another important advantage of this approach is that I can always check the bond of the applied layer. If proper adhesion did not happen, this layer will definitely not survive the scraping process. At this stage I have already worked on the coin for more than 3 days. As you can see, the emperor's portrait is beginning to look natural. The hardest part I faced was his hair. The curly hair of Caracalla is the most recognizable feature of his portrait. It is probably the most difficult detail to recreate. The more I work on his hair, the more I realized that the ancient die engravers were true masters. They had to achieve high detail on steel dies. They also had to consider the mirror image, work without modern microscopes, and ensure the essential recognizability of the emperor's portrait. As a rule, people who simply collect coins rarely notice such details. Only a close study under a microscope begins to reveal these mysteries of ancient minting. It makes me question the theories of modern historians who claim that ancient people used primitive tools. Just imagine how many resources were needed to train people in such high tech and artistic work. Special training schools must have existed back then. A lot of these experts were required because the coin production was very intense at that time. Gradually, I am finishing my work on the bust and will move on to the inscriptions. To save time, I will not show the process of restoring the letters on this side. Instead, I will briefly demonstrate this technique on the other side of the coin. From this angle we can see the planchet crack that I mentioned at the very beginning. As you can see, I am not hiding it. On the contrary, I emphasize it. Because this is an inseparable part of ancient minting history. Focusing on such details greatly highlights the authenticity of this coin. At this stage, I have already created the base for the letters. This task also requires a special approach. Due to cavities and roughness on the field, I must build up the letters in many layers. This takes an immense amount of time and patience. Furthermore, due to an off-center strike, the main image and text shifted upward. This was common for manual minting at that time. Such a small nuance multiplied the difficulty of my work, because some letters simply missed the coin blank. At this stage, I will demonstrate the font correction. Working with the font has its own difficulties. Although I do not show it all in the video, sometimes it is harder than restoring the portrait. The main difficulty is positioning the text in a circle according to the reference. This is a tough task, because the human eye cannot easily track such perfect lines. Therefore, I must constantly double-check and compare everything, which also takes a lot of time and effort. Now, let us decode the abbreviations written in the Greek language. The legend around the portrait reads A Y T K M A Y P S E Y H Antoneinos. The first letters A Y T mean autocrator, which translates to imperator. The letter K stands for Caesar. Next, MAYR stands for Marcus Aurelius, the official name of Caracalla. The word SEYH means Severus, honoring his father. Finally, Antoneinos is Antoninus. This full imperial title showed his ultimate power. To understand why these inscriptions were so important, we must look at Roman political propaganda. In ancient times, coins were the primary mass media. There was no television or newspapers. A coin was the only way for people in distant provinces to see the face of their ruler and learn his official titles. By placing these specific names on the coin, the emperor sent a powerful political message. He connected himself directly to the famous Antonine dynasty and his father, Septimius Severus. This legally confirmed his right to the throne and his absolute power. You might wonder why the name Caracalla is completely missing from this legend. The answer is simple. Caracalla is not an official name, but a nickname. It comes from a specific type of Celtic hooded cloak that the emperor liked to wear and introduced to the Roman army. In official documents, on stone monuments, and especially on state imperial coins, this name was never used. To his subjects, he was always Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. Using his official titles on coins was a strict requirement to maintain the sacred image of imperial authority throughout the entire state. Now let us thoroughly wipe the reverse side of the coin with alcohol and begin its restoration. Just look at how much dirt is still on it. Let us go straight to the point and start with the pedestal of the goddess of fortune. In numismatics, this element is called the ground line. There is a reason why I am starting exactly with it. This is the most clearly preserved detail of the entire composition of the goddess figure. Unlike the portrait side, the crack here runs almost through the entire coin. These defects appeared because of internal stress in the bronze during minting. If the blank was not heated evenly, the heavy strike of the hammer created immense pressure. The metal could not deform properly and cracked. Since my starting point begins at the bottom, the entire build of the figure will move upward. Of course, I strictly follow the original relief to avoid any imaginary details. On the bottom left, near the feet of Fortune, you can see a small globe. This symbol shows the power of the Roman Empire over the world. The rudder on top of the globe means that the goddess directs the destiny of all humanity. Next, I will gradually draw the clothing of the goddess. She wears a chiton with beautiful pleated folds. In ancient times, a chiton was a basic Greek garment. The name itself comes from an ancient word that literally means linen clothing or tunic. In her hand, she holds a cornucopia filled with fruits and harvest grains, which symbolizes prosperity. On her head, Fortune wears an unusual headdress called a kalatos. This basket-shaped crown represents fertility and abundance. However, sometimes, for some reason, the ancient master did not depict the headdress on the goddess, and this specific feature can be seen on the reference coin, which I am using like a map. There is a theory that this happened because the master could not fit all the attributes inside the space of the die. Also, as you might notice, a feature of this coin is a hole right through the center. This is another technical detail of ancient provincial mints. Due to mass production, bronze blanks were cast in special clay molds with extra metal for weight adjustments. After cooling, these castings looked like a bunch of grapes. Workers broke the coins off the spruce and placed them in a primitive bow lathe. They spun the blank back and forth to smooth the surface. This friction created a characteristic dimple in the center, or a complete hole if the coin was pressed too tightly between the lathe cones during processing, as we can see on the coin I am working with. To see the effective work of a bow lathe, you can search for videos on YouTube. Many people reconstruct these tools and demonstrate how to perform full turning work, using simple materials. Another important nuance is the number of layers. In theory, you can apply as many as you want, but in practice it is not like that. More layers add extra weight and hide the original relief. It might look like I am applying thick layers, but in reality I remove more than 50% of them during scraping. Also, please remember that you are watching this whole process magnified under a macro lens. You can see that I have already restored the first 3 letters of the city name. There is a reason for this. To align the entire composition, I must have at least 3 reference points. Without them, the work would require constant remaking and look inaccurate. So the figure of the goddess is almost complete. Now I need to work on the text. The name of the city, Serdica, suffered the least damage on this coin. Thanks to this, it was possible to identify the piece precisely. Without this inscription, all further work would be pure guesswork. As promised, I am showing you how I apply the text. Since it is quite difficult to do this on camera, I will just show you the basic principle. A composite material is applied over the remaining letters. It reinforces the existing inscription and fills in its missing details. Let us dive deeper into the historical details of this legend. On provincial coins, the city name is usually written in the genitive case Ulpia Serdices. This grammatically means of Ulpia Serdica. It directly shows that the coin belongs to the citizens of this specific city and was minted by their local authority. The title Ulpia is a direct link to the golden age of the Roman Empire. Emperor Trajan, born Marcus Ulpius Trajanus, completely reorganized the province of Thrace. He elevated this ancient settlement to a magnificent Roman city with a strategic fortress. Giving his family name, Ulpius, was the highest imperial honor. It made the city a symbol of Roman power on Thracian soil. The name Serdica keeps the memory of the original masters of this land, the Serdi tribe. They were a fierce Thracian people who settled near the thermal springs centuries before the Romans arrived. Therefore, this short inscription combines two worlds, the ancient Thracian heritage and the ultimate power of Roman civilization. And here is the final result at last. Let us compare my work with the reference coin. Now you can see the result of many days of hard work. The green spots on the emperor's face are the original patina of the coin. I did not mask it and left it exactly as it is. Under direct sunlight it might look dangerous, but it is not. This is a completely stable and solid layer. The goddess of fortune here is slightly larger than on the reference. This is normal because there are many variations of these dies with minor differences in details. Also, please notice that on the reference coin she is without a headdress, unlike on my piece. Now let us perform the final weight comparison. I will calibrate the scale for a precise measurement. As you can observe, the weight has slightly increased. It was 14.36 grams and now it is 14.38 grams. This is very important, because from a numismatic perspective, the weight remains within the acceptable normal range.